Welcome everyone to season 2 of 4200%. I'm your host, Anthony Geraci, founder and CEO of Geraci LLP. We're going to talk about how to build, scale, and sell like we did season 1. And how do you build and scale? You won't want to miss the tips and tricks they bring you. This is Anthony Geraci. I'm excited to see you in season 2. Welcome everybody back to another episode of 4200%. I'm excited to bring with you this guest. Not only a man I respect, but honored enough to call him a friend. So Josh Stech is co-founder of Just Be the Bank, as well as co-founder and CEO of Sunday. Josh, welcome to the show. Really appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited to be here with you and in Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas.
I mean, is there a better place for you and I to hang out?
Not at all, right? Exactly. Besides Sirius XM Studio, which is always fun. And then, it's, get a little bit of work in. Yeah, we work hard, play hard, right? That's the only way to go to it. Yeah, thanks for being here, man. So tell me a little bit about current, and then I want to go all the way back, right? It's like, so Sunday, of course, what does Sunday do? Number of employees? Give me background on Sunday, then I want to hear about Just Be the Bank as well.
Yeah, Sunday is a really big passion project of mine. It's a really cool concept. I've been in the property investment business long enough to know that homeowners, when it comes time to sell a house that needs some love, or if you have a tricky situation on your hands, you're inheriting a property, maybe you're going through a divorce, something tough, the traditional process of selling is not for everybody, right? Showings, cleanups, contingency periods, 90-day sale timelines. But then when it comes time to sell off market, there's limited options and it's opaque and it's really kind of set up against sellers in favor of property investors. So what I realized was, on the one hand, sellers were getting sort of shortchanged in this off-market environment. On the other hand, investors were having a hard time sourcing good deals reliably. There needed to be a marketplace in the middle to connect the two, but to do it with a common set of rules, a common set of policies, fairness and transparency at the center of it. So that's Sunday.com. We connect off-market sellers with property investors. We take a fee for making the connection, and then we've attached loan products to the platform, escrow services, the whole 9 yards. But that's Sunday.com.
I love it. And then, of course, your latest venture, Just Be the Bank, co-founder. I think another passion project of yours. But I'll let you get into it.
Very much. Private lending is at the heart of kind of my career story. I started out actually fixing and flipping here in Las Vegas after Stanford grad school. It was the great financial crisis. America was on sale, as I like to say, and I was buying. I teamed up with my dad. I didn't know a lot about raising money, about renovating homes, and not that he did, but we kind of learned together, and it was a pretty special experience. But what we realized was there was a ceiling on that business. If you're fixing and you're flipping, you're building a rental portfolio, it's fun. It can be very profitable and lucrative, but there's a ceiling to that business. And we kept bumping up against it. So we were turned on to, in a really interesting, funny story, turned on to the idea of private lending. And so we did our first one. This was now back in 2011. We did a second one and a 10th one and a 100th one. And before you knew it, we switched completely away from property investment to hard money lending or private lending. And so back to Just Be the Bank, it's kind of a full circle story because we created a lot of our family wealth and success. And we like to see, kind of our legacy in private lending. And then we started getting asked by other people, where do I learn how to do what you did, how you guys got your start? And we said, well, there's not actually much out there in the way of really good high-level education for those that want to really go from being curious about it to being serious about it. Mm-hmm. So we created Just Be the Bank. It's a workshop to teach people how to beat Wall Street at their own game in private lending.
I love that. How many members do you have?
We've educated over 500 people, and that's really just our personal network. Yeah. Someone asked for it. We built it. They referred a couple people. And so we're kind of excited to get the word out, as I think this is something a lot more people need. There's a right way to do it and there's a very wrong way. And when it comes to lending, on the one hand, it feels safer than in property investing in a lot of ways. You're in the debt position, you have more security, but if you do it wrong, do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You paper it up wrong if you don't do it the right way. I'm talking to the guy that, wrote the book on how to paper these things up. If you do it the wrong way, it's actually even more dangerous than just buying a home that you have title to. So yeah, we're trying to teach people to do it the right way.
No, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. In fact, we're just coming from our conference here in between from Elevate and Activate, and usury, right? I tell people I've dealt with regulators for 2 decades. It's like, if you get in a bind with a regulator, I can probably help you out, because regulators, as scary as they seem, they're people too. They get it. If you come forth and do the right thing. Usury, on the other hand, is something, it's constitutional. You can't waive it. It's public policy. You violate usury, it's a free loan. And so, yeah, as you said, a lot of pitfalls in lending is always the problem. But right. I want to get to that story also. It's after, and I don't know the timeline there, when you founded another company. Talk about that one.
Yeah. You may be talking about Lending Home.
Lending Home.
Yeah. Now Kiavi. So, chronologically, just so that we don't get too mixed up here. So, started fixing and flipping in Las Vegas in 2009 with the old man. He doesn't mind me saying that. Did that for a while, started private lending, did that for a while. And then come 2013, I was given the opportunity to start a little company called Lending Home, which was very little at the time, exactly 0 people and an idea, with a friend of mine, another Stanford alumni that I had met out here in Las Vegas, actually. And so we went back to the Bay Area, teamed up with a couple other guys, and started this crazy idea. It was, at the time, peer-to-peer lending was in vogue. If you remember Lending Club, Prosper Marketplace, On Deck Capital, and these peer-to-peer marketplaces were being funded by venture capitalists to disintermediate the banks and allow individuals to loan to themselves in a structured and safe way, but to get higher returns than the banks were offering. So but nobody was doing it in mortgage. So personal loans, small business loans, but nobody was doing it in mortgage. So we had this bright idea, but of course, starting with a 30-year mortgage security that has, a 5, 6, 7% rate, that was going to be a little tough sell peer-to-peer. But this short-term bridge lending thing, short-term, higher yields, much more interesting for a peer-to-peer marketplace. So that's where we started. That happened to kind of be my bailiwick because we had been doing private lending at the time. So we raised venture capital. That was my first experience raising venture capital from those on Sand Hill. And some of the smartest, most aggressive, most creative investors I've ever met. And they gave us a bunch of money to get going. And, 5 years into that thing, we were a $1 billion private company. We'd raised a lot of venture capital. And more importantly, we'd institutionalized a credit asset that had been completely private for a long time. Wall Street didn't know they couldn't spell hard money loan, right? Now they call it, residential structured. I mean, they have all their names for it, right? But back in the day, it was hard money loans.
Right.
And we introduced them. We did the first warehouse lines. We kind of paved the way for what is now, a pretty institutionalized asset class.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to rewind that clock because I've been around since '05 in this business. So before you, as you well know, what was in vogue was, again, they were going in a way peer-to-peer, but it was raising high net worth capital, which, trying to educate these people on hard money lending. And, from about 1980s, they're in a fund. They got it around. And there were some big players in the space, but, time didn't do you favors because there was a large company that was SEC, S1, and I'll not say the name to protect the innocent, but at one time it was $600 million. And right when the subprime crisis crashed, their entire fund model crashed, and then '08, '09. What was left is the smaller balance, what we call balance sheet lenders today, which is really, back then it was just they had a mortgage fund. And so that emphasizes that you went into a market that Wall Street not only didn't know, but when you probably uttered the words of private lending back then, which of course we all knew was hard money lending. I don't know how receptive was the money for you.
Not zero. I mean, because the first question is, show me the data.
Right. Yeah.
There is no other question. Right? Wall Street is smart enough to know they make bets that are data-driven bets.
Right.
Right. And that's why generally they unlock cheaper capital because they have at-scale capital. But that at-scale capital is not trained to take massive risk. Right?
Not at all.
So their first question is, well, show me the data. And then you say, well, let me get back to you on that. That was actually one of the things that I brought to the table to Lending Home early on was my dad and I had done over 1,000 loans together, and we were data junkies. Like we had kept really good accounting of what were people's credit scores at the time that we made the loans? What were our LTVs when we made the loans? How did they perform? And even like a list of 1,000 loans and their performance history, their pay strings was like unheard of. Nobody had it. Yeah. So we started off, our capital journey was on the asset side. So venture capital is more capitalize the business, right? But when it comes to making loans and scaling that business, we went and got asset capital. First, it was friends and family, not too dissimilar from how we all start. We had raised a little $10 million fund of, my dad and our co-founders' parents and stuff like that. And then we got a little bit bigger. We got our first warehouse line. We did a bigger fund with our venture capitalists who personally wanted to invest. And then it wasn't really until probably year 2 or 3 that Wall Street said, okay, you have enough data now for us to make a decision here. So to answer your question, the capital journey was, just because we raised a lot of venture capital didn't mean the asset capital came any easier.
Right. No, not at all. Well, no, and while you're doing all that, you're still building a company. And as I like to talk on the show, building a company is hard enough. We all know as entrepreneurs, but building a company at scale is exponentially harder, right? I've shared my journey on some of the, when building Stratus, like we talked about before the show. I mean, literally I'm hiring whole departments at once and saying, you're going to be the manager, you're going to be the assistants, and you're all going to train together for the next 2 weeks. Sound familiar?
It does. Yeah, it's cliche, but you're changing the engine out while you're flying the plane. All those different sayings, they really are true. It's a tough thing to do, and it's a tough thing to do right. I think what's nice with venture capital is it does give you a bit of margin for error to not have to be perfect on all those crazy big scale decisions. Like you can get some things wrong because you have a backstop, you have capital in the bank. You don't have to bootstrap profits to go make the next bet. You can make multiple bets at one time. And if you're 80% right on them, guess what? You're falling forward. You are falling forward, failing forward. You are making progress. So that's one nice thing about venture capital is in some ways it, gives you a little more margin for error. Trust me, it's not all free and nice and fun. There's a lot of seriousness that comes with it. But yeah, there would be months where, to your point of, hiring entire departments, we kind of built Lending Home from the front to the back, and that's how most people think about it. It's well, until we can have a brand and have a product and be able to go find customers, who cares about servicing? Right. We don't have anything to service. What are we going to do? Well, by the time you have construction draws to make, you better have a construction draw department. By the time you have loans to service, you better, especially if you want to integrate and do it in-house because you're a tech story about integration and efficiencies. So, it's I always say building businesses, but especially businesses that you start with a belief that it is a hyperscale business that needs quick disintermediation, that is not for the faint of heart.
No, not only that, it's like the confidence, right? The confidence of being able, I love what you said, front to back and flying a plane, I call it building your wings on the way down, right? And the confidence maybe, or learning the confidence of, I like the front to back model as well, because you have to have something to sell in order to build that servicing. But then, as you said, so you focus on that. But as soon as you focus on that, you're not even completely built where, oh my God, I need to focus on this now, and this, and almost rewarding for ADD people, at least I feel like, because you have to have that some level of ADD to actually build all this.
Oh, and for those that are more, and you need them on the team, more structured, more disciplined, more by the book, like stepping stone type of builders, it gives them a lot of anxiety. It gives me anxiety to work on things we don't need yet, though, right? It's just one more calorie, one more dollar, one more cycle that we're putting towards something that doesn't matter yet. And I've always found that not only myself, I think my teams that I've pushed, I have somebody near and dear to my heart that was early at Lending Home, early at Sunday. It's kind of been, one of my key teammates for a long time. And, he always says, look, what I love about working with Josh is it's really, really hard. It's not easy, but he gets the best work out of me. And it's because we do work when our back's against the wall. I'm not planning until I'm up against the wall. And now I'm making a decision. Now, again, if you have a different type of business that isn't hyperscale, you need to be more predictable. You need to be more process oriented. But if you're going for something big, if you're overthinking it, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Absolutely. Well, and there's the cost of scale too. Like I love every dollar counts, right? But at the same time, some years, maybe a year, you're running a negative, right? Because to build at scale also takes some engine money, takes some money to get that team, to get the right people in the right seats. And this we'll probably talk about a little bit later. And
I was curious, how many people ever have the opportunity to build businesses with venture capital? And so I looked this up. So it turns out 1 out of every 2,000 companies that started in the United States has some sort of venture capital. 1 in 2,000. And then you think, and this surprised me, 1 out of every 2 adults in the U.S. start a business at some point in their life. 1 in 2, which I was surprised by, but let's go with it. So then that means 1 in every 4,000 people have a chance to have venture capital as their kind of growth source of their business. Well, having now done it twice, I think I've kind of, for better or worse, had some pretty unique experience between Lending Home and Sunday, and it is a special way to build businesses, but you have to be a certain kind of weird and certain kind of crazy.
I love it. Same. But you built Lending Home, and then you exited, right? And then you decided to do it again with Sunday.
Yeah.
What lessons did you take from Lending Home that you took to Sunday? And we haven't even asked this question yet, so I don't know if it did accelerate. Were you able to accelerate Sunday from your learnings, and what were they?
Yeah. Boy, lots of learnings. I think the things that helped me accelerate, good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I think, yes, I took a lot of learnings from Lending Home into Sunday. Lending Home was my first experience with hyperscale, using venture capital to build a business. The first things that got me off the ground faster with Sunday were just the relationships with investors. Once I say this, and I say it a little bit tongue in cheek, entrepreneurs are just wind up toys for venture capitalists. And if you go the distance and you buzz around and you make something constructive that makes money, then they'll wind you up again and give you capital and go. And fortunately, I was a productive wind-up toy at Lending Home. And so a lot of the venture capitalists that had started us there and helped us along the journey in raising a couple $100 million of venture capital were very eager to help us get going at Sunday. And I can't tell you how helpful that is, because raising money takes a lot of time, takes a lot of calories. And my co-founder, actually, who was CFO at Airbnb for a long time, and he had some great relationships from their fundraising days, he and I just made a few calls and got funding and got going. So I think having early funders was a huge advantage. Number 2, early team members. We were talking about this before, before we hopped on here. I think that's the thing that my biggest learning was that no matter how good the product is, no matter how good your strategy is, no matter how good your go-to-market, the true sustainable differentiator in a business is its people. Yeah. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. And it doesn't mean you need millions of people to do great things. It just means you need people. So whether it's 5, 10, or 100, I don't care. They better be the best freaking people you can find. And I think one of the fortunate things at Lending Home was by the time I left, we were many, many hundred people. But we had hired many, many thousands of people, right? I mean, we were hiring 30, 40 salespeople a month at sometimes, seeing a lot of turnover because we were trying new things.
Right.
So I had the benefit of saying, not only do I generally know how to hire people, how to vet people, train people, I've now found the best marketer that I know. I found the best capital markets person I know, the best process and policy guy that I've ever met. And just having the confidence that the early team members aren't going to screw it up and you don't have to look over your shoulder when the future's forward. Yep. That, for me, that was the biggest asset moving from Lending Home to Sunday. Lots of other lessons probably that I learned. We can go deeper on that if you want, but the people, there's no doubt about it, going from a cold start with the right people, it's just all the years. You cut years off of your growth pattern.
100%. No, absolutely. When I restarted the law firm also, finding the people first and who can build the team to make it happen, right, as you focus on other parts of the business that and while they have that, it's for me, you set it and forget it type of thing. Obviously check in and the normal management stuff, but it's like you have the confidence in them because they've done it before, right? Yes. You can do it again, which I absolutely love.
You trust them, and then they know how to work with you.
Yeah.
We all are very, especially as founders, we are odd characters, and knowing how to engage with us, when to bring us a problem, when to not, how to problem solve with us. It's just an art. And so I spoke about somebody on my team earlier, we have hundreds of weekends under our belt together now. There's no replacement for that.
Absolutely not. Yeah. The people who interact with you every day and kind of predict where you want to go, right? Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. So you building Sunday, and you guys now have how many employees in that one?
It's been a really fun ride. We've raised $165 million of venture capital. We've scaled up and down, left and right. We are at the moment looking to kind of do a scale 2.0. So I'd say we are, probably a year or two away from being several hundred again. It's been a very fun ride.
And it's not an accident, right? Building something at scale isn't an accident. You shared with me a kind of a formula you have and I believe you call it the 4 S's, if I recall. So could you share with that?
Oh, I don't know if they're ready for this.
Yeah, they need it.
I'm just kidding. This is the framework, definitely the framework I use most often in business by far. I think it's the one that's created the most value for me. What I believe is if you find a big problem and you have a unique solution, you have a great team and you have a good capital partner, et cetera, this is great. But if you give that same set of assets to one person versus another, then now what's the difference?
Right.
And I think the difference is problem solving. How good of a problem solver are you giving the money to? And so what is problem solving? For me, problem solving, it comes down to 4 things. And a lot of people want to jump to, I know what the problem is and I know how to solve it. This is a problem, especially as you get going. Once you get going and data is coming in, there's a 4S framework we use. Mm-hmm. The first is sensing. Okay? You have to be sensing what's going on. And that really is just simply, it's a data question. What is happening to our core metrics? Okay, it sounds easy, but we all know you're building a business, you're changing it. If you have good dashboarding, you know. If you don't, you do. Right. You know. So sensing. Then there's seeking. So sensing is what's happening. Seeking is why is it happening. That's the second S. So it's what's the story between the data points? What is actually going on that's creating the what? So sensing and seeking. Once you've sought out what is going on, now you can solve. Solving is brainstorming. It's all right. Well, I know what's happening. I know why it's happening, or at least I have a hunch. Now it's what the heck do I do about it? Right? And there's a lot of different options there. And some solutions can have a bigger impact than others, but they take a lot more time than others. They take a lot more resources than others. So there's ways to problem solve to get a lot of ideas out there. And then there's actually, how do we prioritize these based on where we are, how quickly we need impact, who we have on the team? And the final S is starting. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, now we've sensed it, we've sought it out, we've solved it. Now we have to start. We have to implement. Somebody's got to do something after all. We can't just be, looking at data and analysis paralysis our entire life. But that 4S framework, sensing, seeking, solving, starting, is money. And what I will say, when I was taught this, the mentor that taught me this said, okay, now think about a meeting where people were just talking all over each other. They were talking past each other. What was really going on in the 4S framework? And so what he ultimately told me, because I didn't know at the beginning, because, not that smart. He said they were in different, somebody was sensing, somebody was solving, and somebody was always already starting. They didn't know where they were on the problem solving continuum. And so you had one person who they were just hung up on, we don't know what's happening yet. So then somebody said, no, we know exactly what's happening. I'm brainstorming. And then somebody said, I'm way past you. I already decide what to do. How the hell can you make a business work that way? So anytime I'm hearing confusion in a meeting, I go, just a second, which S are we on right now? And it's amazing how quickly it untangles everything.
Love that. No, that is a hell of a framework.
Isn't it?
And I truly identify with it. It's especially, and it's not really a 5th S, but, I've also said, if you can get that, how do you get it faster, right? Speed. Speed is, if I have to execute a plan, I will execute moderately thought out plan with speed better than a perfect plan slowly.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of good sayings that come to mind around that. Like, most decisions are 2-way doors. You can go through them, you can come back. I think a lot of people get into that analysis paralysis because they're worried that once they make a decision, it's etched in stone and they can never go back. There's another great one, and maybe that's a Bezos one. Is he's thought of every good business concept these days. But another one from him, I think, was 70% in good. If we're 70% of the way there on generally a line, this could be the right decision. Let's just try it. Like the extra 30% isn't worth it, because guess what? We're going to learn that extra 30% way faster by trying than we are by overthinking it. So.
It's funny. I have the same formula. Maybe we heard the same thing.
Yeah.
I call it D equals 70%. If it's 70%, I will delegate it and I won't touch it, because if they could do it 70% as well as me, I don't need to be doing it all. They should be doing it, because that 30% I found is the moderate, idiosyncrasies they're going to bring.
Yes.
But did we approach it? Maybe we approach it differently, but did we get the same result? And at least maybe the same why. Why are we doing this?
Yes.
The little things, solving differently doesn't matter.
Yeah. I have a funny little anecdote on that. So I was fortunate to take on some personal investment from one of the first self-made billionaire women in the United States. I won't name her by name, but pretty incredible to have mentorship from her. And it was just over a year, it went on every 2 weeks. And I remember I was in a conversation with her, and she'd run very, very big businesses. And I was telling her about an issue I was having, a concern with one of my executives. And I was going on, and she said, Josh, what % of the job is he getting done that you would get done if you did it yourself? And I said, about 80, 85. She said, then shut up. Let's talk about something else.
I love that.
I'm not kidding you. She's like, shut up. Let's talk about something else. Like 80 to 85, whether it's 70, you got to get leverage out of people. And I do think that a lot of those who I think are mystified by building big business, what is really holding them back is their willingness to let go.
Yeah.
You know?
You can't say that enough, right? And I'll go all so far. You can't build a big business by yourself. It's impossible. There's only 24 hours a day. I don't care how much execution you could do. No. You're one person. Yeah, absolutely. So, lending home, selling it, accident, I'm sure. You did it once, then you did it again with Sunday. Then you had a little side company or main company with it, Sunday Funding, accidentally did it again. Tell us a little bit about Sunday Funding.
Yeah, so just to clarify what you said, still running Sunday, haven't quite exited that. But Sunday Funding, to your point, what we realized once we were connecting enough inventory with buyers is, of course, they need capital. And that wasn't unexpected. I mean, obviously had started lending home. So I kind of anticipated that if we organized deals, we would get the capital, we'd get the loan. So Sunday Funding started to serve that need of our property investors on our platform. And we attached loans, and we did a good job at that. Ultimately, and this is focus in business is definitely underrated. And I would say for creatives like us, especially, I like to think I can do more things at once than I really can. So, it turned out a lending business on its own is a very big, tough, complicated business. And then when it's just a sideshow part of a huge company that's a marketplace that has escrow, that it wasn't getting the attention that it needed. So we were lucky. My chief operating officer, Mark, who'd been with me for a long time, he was also with me at Lending Home before Sunday. We had a decision to make. Do we continue to run Sunday Funding as part of the Sunday ecosystem, or do we find a better home for this where it can really grow and scale and allow me to focus on building the marketplace and not worry about the capital part? So ultimately we did. We sold Sunday Funding several months ago. We sold it to a very large private equity firm.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It brought a lot of money back onto Sunday's balance sheet so that we can invest it in, really our focus in 2026 is franchising the business across the country. So the Sunday marketplace, it does still need local people dealing with homeowners and investors, putting deals together, finding homes. So we're going to franchise the operation. And that gave us the capital to kind of go make that big push. So Sunday Funding is now called Tier 1 Funding, and everybody should look it up. They got great products, and we still refer our customers from Sunday to them. But it was a good experience. It's my first sale to private equity.
I love it. So you built Lending Home, which is Kiavi, one of the largest private lenders in the marketplace.
The largest, I'd say.
Yeah, the largest. You built or are building. Don't want to say built because you're still building.
Sunday, yep.
You are building Just Be the Bank, who has educated over 500 people.
Yep.
I'll say it for you. You have nothing left to prove to anybody. Why do you still get up? Why do you still get up in the morning? Why do you still do what you do?
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. It means a lot coming from you because I think the same of you. I look up to you. Definitely. I mean, I like to, if it's a problem that I care about and I don't think somebody's doing it the right way, it bothers me. I guess I could say it that way. I also think that I do have something to prove, and I think it's to my kids, I heard somebody, so I have a 9-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old, Carter, James, and Leora. And I heard somebody say something that stuck with me. And it's that the most insidious form of child neglect is a parent who's not pursuing their dreams. And I thought about it for a second because I have been tempted now that I am somewhat comfortable and, we theoretically could take some time off. Why don't I? Now I do still teach. I teach my kids baseball and, I coach the teams and I do all the stuff, but I could do more. And I think there's a balance there. And I think that what I want them to look at when they see me is someone who's making a difference, And I think that's that's the thing that's probably stopping me from fully hanging up the cleats from a while is I don't know that that's the message I want to send to my kids. You know, there's some beauty in the grind, you know, and just because the money was never really, if you think about it, it wasn't the reason, man. The reason was do something big, change the world, make life better for people. So yeah, I think it's, once you get to the money part, and again, I am far from the epitome. There's a lot of people who've reached the pinnacle a lot higher than I have, but you start getting even close to it and you realize it's not really what matters.
Yeah. No, I had that. It was 15 years ago now. I remember to this day. And it wasn't a lot of money. Kind of like you said, I never had this thing. You know, I grew up relatively poor. So the amount of money that I said I'd be done with was enough, but that was 31. And funny enough, I went through probably a good year of, I've achieved my life purpose. What do I do now? Mm-hmm. And then kind of to your point, it took me another couple of years to figure out that was never my purpose at all. My purpose is I'm that 8-year-old kid with Legos, right? I just get to build things and build cool things. And I just love building and seeing people like grow and solve problems.
Yeah. It's, that's the other thing. I think one of the most fulfilling parts of building business is seeing other people reach their full potential. You know, people that didn't think, great. One of the most rewarding parts of building Lending Home and Sunday is that along the way of the thousands of people that we've hired and mentored and, you know, given career advice in progress to watch dozens, and I mean dozens, because now I've invested personally in over 100 startup companies. And I'd say 24 of those 100 are people that worked for me that had a great idea that now wanted to go take a shot at it because they saw that this idiot could do it. Why can't they? And I'm serious about that. Like, you know, I really, it's been really special watching those younger entrepreneurs get enthusiasm out of like, okay, now I've been on the inside. I've seen how it's done. There is a playbook here. I can do it. Let me go take a risk. And then them coming to you and saying, would you be one of the first checks in this business and this crazy idea? That actually may be one of the reasons to just keep building businesses is to keep spinning them out. It's really fun.
I absolutely love that, man. So we're almost out of time here. So I'm going to give you a couple, I will say, kind of rapid fire questions, if you will, but pretty easy, I think. Okay. If you had to give one piece of advice to a business owner who wanted to scale a company, and just one piece of advice, what do you think? What would it be?
I would say if it doesn't work at small scale, it doesn't work at big scale.
That's great. What 1 to 3 books would you recommend somebody read?
Boy, I don't want to sound too obvious here. Oh my goodness. I mean, the Think and Grow Rich, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, they all come to mind. But there's and now I'm struggling to think of the name. And so that I wish I would have thought about this. There's one in particular that's unbelievable. Actually an intern of mine back in the early Lending Home days, he was a Harvard Business School kid, and his teacher had given him this book to read over the summer, and he gave it to me. I need to get you the name of it. It will change your life. It's about a music executive who ends up getting cancer pretty young, and his journey with cancer. He hires a journalist to follow him as he basically dies of cancer pretty quickly. It is crazy impactful, but those are some good ones. Yeah, we might want to edit that out. That wasn't very good.
No, that's perfect. Are you kidding? We're going to ask you for the book and drop it in the comments for sure for people to have.
Yeah, yep.
And, you know, that's all I have. You know, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. I'm excited about what you're doing, where you're going, and I'm just grateful to be part of it, man. Thanks for being part of your journey.
Yeah. Oh, it's no, I'm grateful too. And, you know, for your listeners, I convinced my team to put a little something together. So if those listening want to go to justbethebank.com/Geraci, then they can. And they will get 3 PDFs that kind of get them up to speed on private lending and how to be the bank. They'll get another white paper on what it means to really utilize relationships and build and delegate. And then we'll invite them to our next couple webinars where we talk about the housing market and how to really win in today's environment.
I love it. And do you want to give them your website, or we can give it after the fact, and we'll put it in the comments as well if they want to reach out to you and your team to be part of it?
Yeah. Check out Sunday.com if you're interested in potentially franchising the opportunity. That'd be cool. And if you want to learn how to be a lender, you want to learn how to be the bank, go to justbethebank.com.
Well, thank you, Josh, for being part of this. We're grateful to have you, buddy. Excited about everything you're doing, at Sunday as well as Just Be the Bank. And this has been another episode of 4200%. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at the next episode.